Okay, today we are learning Shabbat Daf Pebet. We're going to finish the 8th parak and start our new parak, the 9th parak. Okay, we're at the top. We had a lot of interesting bathroom discussions yesterday. We're going to continue a little bit with that today, starting on the 3rd line of Pebet. Amar le Rav Huna le Rabba Berea. Okay, this is really the story. If we talked about what we were saying yesterday, it showed the importance of how they saw the bathroom as really central because it was an issue of health, and health is very central. Which we can very much relate to nowadays. Even in the discussions about, is it more important to go to shul or is it more important to keep people safe and not go to shul, right? That health overrides Torah and, importance of davening in a minyan. So here we're going to see an interesting story which really frames it. Amar le Rav Huna le Rabba Berea. Rav Huna says to Rabba, his son, my time alo shchichat kamei Rav Chisda. Why don't you spend more time with Rav Chisda? Okay? Because he's such a brilliant person. You should be spending more time with him, right? This is classic. The father says to the son, come on, why aren't you doing this? You should be doing that. Interesting. I read a little bit, but unfortunately I didn't have time to research it more. But apparently there was some falling out between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, and they didn't speak for many years. And it seems like Rav Huna is saying, even though I don't speak to him, you should be going to learn with him. In other words, even though we don't get along, he appreciated how brilliant he was, and he thought his son should learn with him. So it's very interesting. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to research it all, but to me, the story seems very interesting in light of that whole situation. So he says, I don't understand why you're not spending more time with him. So here comes the interesting now, right? This is your classic yeshiva bacher answer. Okay, we're going to see the story is the difference between the parent who has perspective and the child who's very much focused on, this is my whole world, my Daled Amot is all about learning, and learning is the only thing that's important, right? You would think the kid would say, I'm not interested in learning, but that's not what he says. He says to his father, my azel legabe, why should I go to learn with him? Every time I go to learn with him, he talks about stam, not important things. Amarle. So he says this is an example. He'll say to me, that's what it means, Amarle, he'll say, when I've been there before, Rav Chisda has said to me, Man da'aya lebeta kise, lo leitiv behedya, velo litrach tve, v'hai karkashta atlat shine yativ, dilma mishtamta shine de karkashta, v'ati lidei sakana. He says to him, when he gets there, he says, listen, when you go to the bathroom, this is what you should do. You shouldn't sit down and start going too quickly. He says you shouldn't try too hard. If you're having issues, don't push too hard because the rectum is made of these, he calls it these 3 teeth. And if you push too hard, the teeth might fall out. Okay, you'll kind of cause damage there. And then you'll come lidei sakana. So he says, right, why should I be going to him? All he talks about is the bathroom. That's not something I'm interested in hearing about. So what does he answer him back, right? The classic, here comes the father with the perspective, and what does he say? And this is really frames everything we talked about yesterday. Amarle, hu asik b'chaya dibriata, va'at amarit b'mili da'alma, kol sheken zil legabe. He says, what are you talking about? He's talking about health. That is so, so, so important. And you're calling that some things that are uninteresting, right? This is so classic, the younger generation, right? First of all, they want to learn in yeshiva. They think, it's just all about learning, right? Learning. Torah is the only thing. Comes and now, right? And also probably he was a little uncomfortable with the whole bathroom discussion. You can imagine someone younger, right, has more issues talking about the bathroom and the Beit Midrash. But he says, right, it reminds us of the story yesterday where Zunin goes into the Beit Midrash and immediately he starts asking questions about going to the bathroom. It seems very strange. But Rav Huna says to his son, that's what it's all about. That is so important. That is Torah. Torah is everything. Torah covers all those things. And therefore, don't think, all the more reason that you should go learn with him is because he's a rabbi who has perspective and he understands that this is part of Torah. So there you have your big line about all of yesterday's sugya and much of what we learned in Brachot. Now we're moving on, although you're going to notice the first machloket is a machloket between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, who were the 2 characters in this story. So, or 2 of the 3, right? It was Rav Huna and his son, but Rav Huna versus Rav Chisda. Rav Huna Amar, Mikanech. So now this goes back to something we saw yesterday. We suggested yesterday, but it was immediately rejected, that maybe you would think an earthenware shard was better for Shabbat. We talked about how you can't use an earthenware shard during the week because it might cause damage. However, there was a thought that maybe on Shabbat it would be more ideal because rocks are the highest level of muktzah, whereas a shard is less muktzah because a shard was a kli to begin with. It was a utensil, and it could be potentially used for something else. So therefore, maybe better to take something that's less muktzah, even though maybe it will cause damage to your body. So now obviously you're going to say, well, if it's going to cause damage to your body, it shouldn't be allowed at all. But we're going to see a machloket about this, and it seems that the machloket is really about whether a shard really would cause damage or not. Okay, because Rav Huna says, Mekanech b'tzror ve'em mekanech b'cheres. Rav Huna says definitely you should take a rock and not cheres, because cheres is dangerous. Rav Chisda amar mekanech b'cheres ve'em mekanech b'tzror. Now Rav Chisda was the one who was so concerned with your health. It must be that he thought, again, it all depends on how sharp your shard is. But if you have a shard that's not so sharp, then theoretically you can use that. And that would be better in his mind than using a rock, because a rock or a pebble is very muktzah. Meitive. Now we're going to have a source that contradicts Rav Huna. Hayu lefanav tzror b'cheres, mekanech b'cheres, ve'em mekanech b'tzror. This source, so even though we suggested this yesterday and rejected it, in this source we're going to see, and according to Rav Chisda, we saw that definitely it's better to use a shard. Okay, it says use the shard and not the tzror, not the rock. So tiyuvta de Rav Huna. They say this in fact is a contradiction to Rav Huna. But here we're going to have an answer. Tirgama Rav from Bar Papa Kamei de Rav Chisda. Rav from Bar Papa in front of Rav Chisda explained this braita according to Rav Huna. Aliba de Rav Huna, according to Rav Huna, be'ogne kelim. It must be talking about with the rim of the utensil, where you have a shard that came off of the rim, and the assumption is that that's not going to be sharp. So if you use something like that that's not sharp, then that will definitely be more ideal. Moving on to a next case. We're going to have another machloket. Rav Chisda also appears in this. You can see that he was very involved with all these bathroom issues. If you have an option, and you can either take a rock or you can take grass to wipe yourself with, Rav Chisda, Rav Hamnuna, we don't know who said what. Chad amar mekanech b'tzror ve'em mekanech b'asavim, v'chad amar mekanech b'asavim ve'em mekanech b'tzror. Okay, one said better to use the grass, one said better to use the pebble or the rock. So now we have a bit of a question about what this is talking about. Some people explain that this is talking about during the week, that we're talking about what's better health-wise, okay? What will more likely scratch you or more less likely to scratch you? Is it grass or is it a rock? Some people say that we're talking about Shabbat. And the issue is, if the grass is attached to the ground, are you better off? Now, what's the concern? The grass attached to the ground, you might pull it out if you're using it. So according to the opinion that you can actually use the grass and that's better than a rock, they say, well, look, a rock is high level muktzah. The grass is attached to the ground. Yes, maybe there's a concern you'll pull it out, but we're not really so concerned. Theoretically, again, I'm not exactly sure, but you could try to wipe yourself while the grass is still attached to the ground without actually pulling the grass out of the ground. And therefore that's better. And the other opinion says, no, we're very concerned. You're going to pull it out. That's worse than using these rocks, which we already allow rocks in certain cases, so we should allow it here too, and therefore the rocks would be better. Meitive. Now we're going to have another contradictory source for one of the opinions. Hamakanech. Now we're going to have an issue with the grass. Okay. Hamakanech b'davar sha'or sholetet bo. If you wipe yourself with something that's flammable. Okay. Now what's the concern? It seems to me, I think this is pretty obvious. Something that's flammable is generally dry and brittle. Something that's dry and brittle is going to be more likely to scratch you or hurt your body. So therefore, if, according to this braita, if you use something that's flammable, shinav hatachtonot noshrot. Again, it causes these teeth of your rectum to come out. Therefore, it's very dangerous. You shouldn't use it. So how on earth can we use grass, right? That seems to be flammable. It's something they use in fires, and it would be a problem. So what do they answer? Lo kashya ha belachin ha b'yeveshin. We distinguish between wet grass and dry grass. If the grass is wet, and that's when it's really attached to the ground, then it would be allowed because it's soft. It's only once it hardens that it will be a problem. Okay, now we're getting into more health issues related to the bathroom. Hanitzrach lipanot ve'eno nifneh. You have to go to the bathroom and you don't. Some people add the girsa, and this came up in Shabbat, Daf Mem Aleph. We saw this already, most of the sugya we saw, which is if you have to go to the bathroom and then you go in to eat. Right? You shouldn't go eat when you have to go to the bathroom. So most people say that's what this is referring to, or maybe just in general. So what happens to you if you do this? Again, they're trying to scare people. Rav Chisda v'Ravina, Chad Amar, we don't know who said what, but one of them said, again, Rav Chisda keeps talking here. This obviously was very important to him. Chad Amar ruach ra'ah sholetet bo, v'chad Amar ruach zuhama sholetet bo. Okay, let's start from the second one. The second one is more clear. Ruach zuhama means a bad smell. You're going to have a bad odor in your body if you don't go to the bathroom. That kind of makes sense. But the first opinion breaks up into two options. Ruach ra'ah could be an evil spirit comes into you, which is kind of like scare tactics, right? Something bad will happen to you. Some people say it's also bad breath, but it's bad breath that's going to come out through your mouth rather through your body. Okay, either which way, it's not a good thing. You should make sure to go to the bathroom before you go to eat, and we're going to see why. Okay, we talked about this again in Shabbat Mem Aleph. Detanya, hanitzrach lenekava va'ochel. First of all, I'll even mention before this, because it doesn't say this inside, which is there weren't bathrooms, right? We go into a Chadar Ochel now, there's bathrooms, right? Any Chadar Ochel you go to, there's some bathroom nearby. You go to a restaurant, there's always some sort of bathroom. Therefore, it's not such an issue, right? If you notice, there's always a bathroom by a place where people are eating because it's likely people will have to go to the bathroom while they're eating. But in those days, they didn't have that. So if you're going into a big meal and you're going to be there for a long time, make sure to go. This is, you leave the house with your little kids. You always say, did you go to the bathroom before we leave, right? Try to go, even if you don't have to go, because we don't know when we're going to get to a bathroom. It's the same kind of idea here. So when you're going in to eat, you'll be there a while. Make sure to go to the bathroom first. So now they bring a comparison in this Braita. Hanitzrach lenekava va'ochel, if you need to go, but you go and eat without going to the bathroom. Domet letanor shesikuhu al gav afro. It's like lighting up an oven with its ashes, meaning before you cleaned out the ashes from last time, you still have, you can see the image, you still have what's left over from last time, and it's not going to light up well because it just has ashes, and the ashes don't light well. So likewise, if that's Zoe Tchilat Ruach Zoama, what's going to happen? Your food's not going to digest properly, just like the fire's not going to get going properly. You're going to end up with a bad smell and, a stomach ache or something like that. Oh, now we get to another situation. What if you're constipated? You need to go, but you can't. So here are some tips about how to deal with constipation. Amar Rav Chisda. Again, Rav Chisda. Notice he's in every single line in this section. Ya'amod v'yeshev, ya'amod v'yeshev. You should stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. It helps. Rav Hanan min harde amar yistalek litzdadim. You should move to the side. Most people explain this. You should go to a different place. Okay, move to a different bathroom. Go find a different place. My guess is it keeps you moving, right? When you move your body, that also helps. So you walk to somewhere else, but then already maybe it'll help you. Rav Hamnuna amar yimashmesh b'tzor b'oto makom. This we saw yesterday. Use a rock to get things going. Kind of like a suppository. Rabbanan amre yasiach da'ato. This is an interesting one. He says, take your mind off of it, right? Sometimes you obsess over something and you can't, right? So he says, take your mind off of it. That will help you. The Gemara doesn't like that answer. Amale rabacha beredu rava le rabashi kol shechen tikchi masik date lo mafne. If you take your mind off of it, you're not going to go to the bathroom, and then you're going to end up worse, right? We all know if you're constipated and you don't go, it gets much worse. So Amarle. What he meant is take your mind off of everything else, only focus on this, and that will get things going. Rabbi Yirmi Ami Difti. Okay, here we come with a nice story. I don't know if you'll find it so nice. I once saw an Arab merchant. He stood up, sit down, stood up, sit down. Okay, he was having some issues. He did try the first option that we mentioned. Okay, until it all came pouring out of him like pouring out of a pot. Yes, very unpleasant image. Tanu Rabbanan. Hanichnas b'sudat keva. Okay, this is what we talked about before. You're going into a big meal. You'll be there for a long time. Here's some advice, and this we saw also in the earlier daf on Shabbat. Yalech eser pamim shel arba amot, va'amre le'arba pamim shel eser amot. You should either walk 10 times 4 amot distance, or 4 times 10 amot, same thing altogether. And you should do this v'nifneh v'nichnas v'yeshev b'makom. Okay, you should basically do this to basically speed things up so that you can go to the bathroom in case you need to go. Well, walk around a little. That'll help you go, and then you can go in and eat. New Mishnah, last Mishnah for our parak. Cheres. Okay, an earthenware shard. What size would you be obligated for carrying on Shabbat? Kedei litain bein patsim lechavero, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. This is between, if you have these beams that you're putting up, they would often put a shard in between. I don't 100% understand this, but it seems like to make sure they don't, Rashi says, shelo yitakem, that they don't bend or something. So they would kind of put these shards in between to keep them in their place. So whatever size that is, that was apparently a common use. So that would be the size. Rabbi Meir Omer, no, it's for something else. Kedei lachtot et ha'or. To basically help the fire, you would use a shard and push the coals around to get the fire going. That would be the size. Rabbi Yossi Omer, kedei lekabel bo revi'it. It would be the size that you could actually use the shard to pick up a little bit of water and hold a revi'it, a quarter of a log of water in it. We'll talk in a minute. The Gemara is going to get into the sizes, which size is bigger, which size is smaller. Amar Rabbi Meir. But before we get there, and this line is going to cause the whole beginning of the next parak, which is Amar Rabbi Meir, even though I can't give you a clear proof from the Torah or from the Tanakh, but I can bring you a verse that you can see a reference to this. What is it? Okay, this is one of these nivuot of the bad things that are going to happen in Yeshayahu, and it says what's going to happen. It's going to come a time where lo yimatzeh b'machtato cheres lachtot esh miyakud. There's going to come a time where you're not going to even be able to find a shard of earthenware vessel to stoke up your fire. So what do you see here? That was obviously a common use because it comes up in the pasuk. So that's his proof. Amarle Rabbi Yossi, Misham Raya, that's your proof. B'lachsof mayim migeva. Look at the end of that pasuk. It says you're not going to find an earthenware shard, number one, to stoke your coals. Number two, v'lachsof mayim migeva, to take water out from a hole in the ground. So Rabbi Yossi says, you're trying to prove your point from this. I could take this pasuk and prove my point, which is they use shards for water, to collect water. So therefore, each one brings a hocha from a pasuk. How does this lead to the next parak? The next parak is going to start with a slew of cases that have nothing to do with Masechet Shabbat. They're all going to have the same structure of minayin. How do we know this halacha? And they're going to bring a verse. And that all comes because of this Mishnah, where our Mishnah brought a proof text from a pasuk, and therefore the next few Mishnayot are going to be a set of Mishnayot. This happens often where there's a bunch of Mishnayot that were strewn together because when they learned the Mishnayot, they learned them orally first. It wasn't written down. And the easiest way to remember is to string things together that have the same wording. The best example is always in Masechet Megillah. Ein Bain. There's no difference between Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni, but this. And then they go into a slew of maybe 11 or so Ein Bain. There's nothing between this and that, and we get totally off topic. Same idea here. Okay, so this is a unit, a section of Minayin, this, that, Shenemar, blah, blah, blah. And there's actually a mnemonic within a mnemonic, because the mnemonic is the Minayin, how to write the same structure, and that's how we remember, okay, there's four, I think it's four, but whatever it is, you'll remember there's four Minayin, and then you'll try to remember what they are. Another mnemonic is connecting these to verses, right? The question is, do we actually learn it from the verse, or is the verse just being used as a mnemonic device to remember the halacha? So that's also a mnemonic. According to many, it's used as a mnemonic device. Okay, now on to the Gemara. This next line is in parentheses, but whether you read it or whether you don't, it's basically where the Gemara is going, which is trying to figure out shiur de Rabbi Meir nafish or shiur de Rabbi Yossi nafish. Which shiur, Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Meir, is a larger piece of shard? Would you need a larger piece for stoking the coals or for holding a revi'it of water? So the Gemara says, Mistabra shiur de Rabbi Yossi nafish. Okay, logically you would think that to get water to fit into the shard would be a larger piece than to just stoke the coals. But if you read just the verse, what would you think? Shiur de Rabbi Meir nafish. Why? The verse says you won't have a shard to do A, and you won't even have a shard to do B. Now, what would make sense? You won't have a shard to do something big, right? You won't have a big shard, and you won't even have a little shard. So therefore, it sounds like Rabbi Yossi would be the smaller shiur, because it doesn't make sense to say you won't have a shard to do something, even a little teeny shard, and you won't even have a bigger shard. It doesn't make any sense to say that way. So therefore, it sounds like Rabbi Yossi is the smaller shiur. So Rabbi matnit nami lachtot me'esh mikida gdola. So he says, really what we're talking about in the Mishnah is to stoke a large fire. And to stoke a large fire, you'll need a bigger shard. So in the end, we're going to say, just like in the pasuk, it appears Rabbi Yossi is smaller. Also in the Mishnah, we'll explain that Rabbi Yossi is smaller, and we're talking about a large fire. Rabbi Yossi Omer Misham Ra'aya. So remember, Rabbi Yossi says, why are you proving it from your opinion from the pasuk? I could prove mine just as easily. So Shapir Kamerle Rabbi Yossi the Rabbi Meir, he has a good point. So how could Rabbi Meir say, we prove it from the pasuk, my version? So how does Rabbi Meir read the pasuk? And this goes back to our general, it's nice, we're ending with the basic principle about things we've been learning in this parak. Rabbi Meir lo mabaya kamar. He reads the pasuk as a lo mabaya structure, which means not only will you not have this, but you won't even have that. Meaning, lo mabaya nidi dechashuv li'inashe de lo lishkachle. Number one, you won't have something that's a common use. Okay, you won't have the shard to stoke the coals. That's your common use, and that leads us to our Mishnah. Because remember, we generally are saying that the reason, the amount that you're chayav for carrying out is the usual, traditional, typical use. So the typical use is that. Comes the pasuk to say, not only will you not have the typical use, ela afilu midi de lo chashuv li'inashe, even in atypical use, which is a smaller amount, lo lishtakachle, you're not even going to have that. That's the curse in the pasuk. Not only you're not going to have it for your regular use, you won't even have it for some other use. But when it comes to our halacha is obviously talking about the typical use. And since talking about the typical use, the use for getting water is not a significant use, and therefore it's not coming under consideration. Hadran halacha motzi yayin. With that, we finish this parak. A few people have asked, I know I talked about this before, but I gave it some more thought, and I'm going to go back to why we're spending so much time on this, right? And it begs the question, because you can see how much detail they're getting into, where they're going, and I want to just say a few things about this parak before we move on. One thing we learned about this parak, by the way, is how the Gemara is all based on, or the Mishnah is based on the reality of their time. And what we saw here is that they talked about a certain reality. Already the Amoraim have a different reality, and they start interpreting it, trying to figure out, and there's many different interpretations as to each thing and what it is, because their reality was somewhat different. The later commentaries, the Rishonim, have their own reality, and everyone kind of reads in with a different perspective when you're talking about things that have to do with what was actually going on in their times. Like, what did they use glass for? What did they use shard for? What were all these uses? It's very much based on their time and where they were living. Now, so you might say, why do we need to learn all this? Because again, it's like anything. The principles are still true. Right? The concept behind it is still the case. So we would just have to take this and apply it to nowadays, right? Like I gave that example of the dirty tissue. Or, it's about what's important to us. What do we use things for? So we got into so much detail that you might think, why are we getting into all this detail? But really, it's important because it lays down the ground principles that we can take with us into our time. The second thing I want to talk about is why we spend so much time on Hotzah. So what we suggested before, I brought up what Safrai said in Mishnat Eretz Yisrael. We talked about that people spent a lot of time at home in their houses. Their houses were small, so they wanted to go out on Shabbat. Right during the week, they were all out in the fields most of the day. Certainly when you're talking about the men, and that's their main focus usually. And on Shabbat, everybody was home, and therefore it was a time to, even the women were working at home all the time. They didn't have time to sit around. Shabbat's a time where they can go out, they can talk to their friends, they can go to shul, they can do things. So we even saw that they went to this drasha on Friday night, right? Even the women went to the drasha on Friday night. So basically there was a lot more interaction, a lot more going out in the neighborhood. So therefore you had to know, what could you carry, what couldn't you carry? The second thing is, I thought of another reason, which is a little bit connected, but I was thinking about the fact that the melachot are very obvious, right? You can't work in the fields. Nobody was working in the fields in Shabbat because they were home. That's basically obvious. And you can't go hunting, and you can't go, right? Those are very clear. But carrying is a different type of malacha, and it's not so obvious that you can't carry, right? It's in fact, to us, it's not obvious at all. Like the classic is, you go to Chutz La'aretz, you forget almost that you need an Eruvin, that you you can't carry. So obvious to us that we can carry, and it's not really such a malacha. By nature of the fact that you can fix it and you can create a scenario where you can carry, and you can also carry in your house, you just can't carry out of your house. It created all sorts of problems. And because of that, they needed to deal with it much more so to show this is a central issue. This is a malacha like all the other malachot, and it has a lot of details, and you have to pay attention to all the details because it's very easy to make a mistake in these details. And it's possible that maybe that's why they're spending a crazy amount of Masechet Shabbat specifically talking about those details. It's just a suggestion. Okay, moving on now to the 9th parak. So as I said, we're going to get off topic. I'm a Rabbi Akiva. We're going to see a machlok at Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis about the Tumor of Avodah Zarah. Now, Avodah Zarah is Tameh. It carries impurities. We're back to the laws of impurity. It carries impurities with it. I have a theory that the reason why they're always talking about impurities in the Gemara is because there's very little Gemara on Seder Taharot. The only Gemara is Nida. And they're worried that people are going to learn through all of Shas and not know anything about Tum and Tara, so they're always putting it in whenever they can. So Rabbi Akiva says, actually, it wouldn't explain the Mishnah because the Mishnah is Taharot, but it explains all the other times that the Gemara starts quoting things from Taharot. Okay, this is in the Mishnah. The Mishnah has, everything in it, so that's not really the case. But in general, we seem to always be getting back to Taharot. So Rabbi Akiva says, so the rabbis basically declared Avodah Zarah is going to carry impurity. What reason did they give for this? They wanted to distance people from Avodah Zarah. And if they say it has impurity, people will stay away from it. So it was a good way to keep people away from idol worship and idols and things associated with it. So Rabbi Akiva says, how do we know? Now the question is, when they instituted that it's going to have impurities, there's different levels of impurities. So there's, we have tumat made, okay, like in an ohel, that certainly it's not going to be. But regular tuma is either by touching, okay, that's every basic tuma is by touching, or by what we call, that's maga. Then there's masa. Masa is if I'm carrying a tray and on the tray is something, but I'm not actually touching that object, but I move the tray and the object is on the tray, that's called masa. I'm carrying it, I'm moving it. So Rabbi Akiva says Avodah Zarah is matame b'masa. How do we know this? Ki nida, okay, how do we know that it's like a nida? A nida is matame tumat masa. We're going to learn today that a sheretz is only matame by touching, not by carrying. A nida is matame also by carrying. So shenema, how do we know it's like nida? Because it says about Avodah Zarah, tizarem kemo zava, kemo dava. Sorry, it says tizrem. Okay, you should scatter them, or it should be strange to you. It should be distant from you, like a nida is distant from you. Okay, dava is a word for nida, comes up in the Torah as a nida. So this pasuk from Yeshayahu, by the way, this pasuk, another reason possibly why this is quoted here is because this is from the same parak in Yeshayahu that we quoted in the previous Mishnah, which also explains why they're jumping to this topic. Okay, that was Yeshayahu Lamed pasuk Yudalid. Now we're in pasuk Kafbet. So in the same context there, it talks about Avodah Zarah should be distanced to you like a nida. Say tomarlo. Say to it, get away from me. Okay? Let's keep far away and talk to it and say, keep your distance from me. So what do they say? Ma nida mitama b'masa, af avodah zarah mitama b'masa. So just like a nida, since it's like a nida, we're going to say it's like a nida all the way. Okay? It's tama b'masa. Tanan hatam. Now the Gemara wants to give us some background because they really give us the background. They gave us Rabbi Akiva's opinion, but we're going to find out that the rabbis disagree. And this is a Mishnah quoted from Masechet Avodah Zarah, which makes sense. Misha haya beito samuch la'avodah zarah. If your house, okay, let's say we have a house, we share a wall basically. Okay, the wall is my wall, but you're on the Avodah Zarah is on the other side of the wall. Let's say an idol worship place. And they're benefiting from the use of my wall. Okay, so mishaya beito samuch la'avodah zarah v'nafal. Let's say my wall falls. Okay, assuming I built my wall, later the Avodah Zarah took over the house next door. So now we share this wall. If it falls, asur livnoto, I can't rebuild the wall because I'm basically helping this place of Avodah Zarah. I'm benefiting them. So now I'm stuck. I have no wall. Not to mention now my house is open to the house of Avodah Zarah. That I certainly don't want. So Ketzad Yaseh, what am I supposed to do? Kones litoch shelo arba amot uboneh. Okay, anyone who learned Baba Batra, this sounds a lot like Avodah Zarah, Baba Batra with the walls and everything. Anyway, you move 4 amot inside to your space, so you're going to lose some of your house, and you're going to build your wall 4 amot in. Okay? Hayash shelo v'shel avodah zarah. Let's say, now this is really if the wall was fully in your territory, but it was serving the purpose for the Avodah Zarah place, then you move 4 amot in and you're good. Hayash shelo v'shel avodah zarah. What if the wall was both yours? And that part of the wall was in the shetach of the Avodah Zarah wall, and part of it was yours. Okay, actually, let me just think for a minute. That makes sense the way I said it. Now, tokota mechitza af lebeit Avodah Zarah. Something doesn't make sense to me. 1 minute. I guess I don't know if it was considered your shetach or no one's shetach, but I guess you have to just move 4 into your property. But if you both shared the space that the wall was on, so basically let's say the wall is 2 amma wide, 1 amma is on your property, 1 amma is on the Avodah Zarah property, then I guess before we were talking about that the wall was the opposite of what I said. It wasn't fully in your property. It was really like a shared wall, and your property started from there. So you have to move in 4 from where your property starts. But in this case, if your wall was shared space, half of it was half of it was yours, and half of it was the Avodah Zarah's, then nidon mechza al mechza. You split it in the middle, which means that your property starts 1 amma in, which means you don't have to move 4 amma, you only have to move 3 amma. Okay? And then you would do it like that. Now, what happens with all the stuff when the wall fell? You now have a pile of rubble in your property. So you have, let's say, rocks and twigs and dirt. What happens to all that? Well, it's all potentially was used by the Avodah Zarah. So now, right, we don't know, was it your side of the wall that's there, or was it their side of the wall that's now sitting in your property in the rubble? So all of that is mitame kesheret. Shenemar shaketz tishaktzenu. Okay, this is said about Avodah Zarah. Shaketz tishaktzenu, right? It should be like shikutz, like, right? That's where shiksa comes from. It should be despicable to you. And that's what they also say about a sheretz. So therefore, it's like a sheretz. What do we say about sheretz? It's only mitame b'maga, not b'masa, only by touching, not by carrying. So that's the rabbis. We didn't see this in our Mishnah, but here it says that that's the case. Rabbi Akiva omer kinida. Here comes in Rabbi Akiva and disagrees. No, it's not like a sheretz. It's like a nida. Shneimar tazreim kamo dava. Should be like a nida. Ma nida mitama b'masa, af avodah zarah mitama b'masa. So we have this basic machloket. We have one verse which seems to indicate it's like sheretz. We have a different verse that seems to indicate it's like nida. The simple reading of the Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva holds by one verse, Chachamim hold by the other verse, and Shalom Yisrael, right? Each takes their own pasuk, and very nice. So one learns fully from nida, one learns fully from sheretz. And then we're going to have a difference. Is it only by touching, which is like sheretz, like a creepy crawler, or is it only like nida, in which case it's going to also be b'masa. However, we're now going to have a machloket between 2 Amoraim, one in Bavel and one in Israel, okay, one Rabba and afterwards Rabbi Elazar, about what exactly they're arguing about. The chart on today's Daf will help you a lot. It organizes it. I did kind of a simple sheet today, but the chart's the main thing that you really need. So now, let's read Rabba. Amar Rabba. Tazleim da Amar Kra nachrinu minech kizar. Right? What does it mean, Tazleim? Okay, it means make it like a zar. Make him like a stranger. Keep him far away from you. Say tomarlo. Hikanes al tomarlo. Say, get away from me, and don't say, come into my house. Okay, that's just reading the verse. But here comes the important part. He says something interesting. Everyone agrees that it's tame masa by carrying it, even if you don't touch it. So why? In other words, he basically says each one can't ignore the pasuk of the other. So basically, we're going to say everyone agrees that it's tumat masa like a nida. So what's the issue? How is it not like a nida according to the rabbis? Well, kipligi be'evin mesama. Okay, if you notice in the Mishnah, it just said they're mitame like a sheretz or they're mitame like a nida. It doesn't say masa maga. It just says like a sheretz, like nida. So comes Rabbi and he says everyone agrees masa. What's their machloket be'evin mesama? Evin mesama is a big heavy rock. We talked about this before. Came across it once before. It's a big, heavy rock. Now, it's used in different ways. Rashi says it's al gabei yetedot. It's like standing off the ground, okay, propelled higher up, let's say. We talked about a nida. If a nida sits on something, then whatever she's sitting on is tameh. The question is, if this rock is so solid and underneath the rock, in the airspace underneath the rock, but not touching the rock has no effect on it, there's something underneath, will that be as if she's considered she's sitting on that? And it will be, according to the way we understand Evin Masama in that way, even though the rock is so heavy and whatever's under the rock is not being affected by the nida and what she's sitting on. Or likewise, if she's carrying the rock or moves the rock or something and there's something on the rock and again, like somehow there's no effect of her movement on the item, still we're going to say that it's Tameh. Okay, there's a special deen by Nida, not only Masa, but even Even Misama. It's a unique law, just by Nida. So what does he say? Very simply, the comparison to Nida, do we compare it to Nida or do we compare it to Sheretz? Didn't have to do with Masa. Everyone agrees Masa. The question is it Matame like Nida all the way, even Even Misama. Okay? I did a little chart at the bottom also that a Nida is Matame, right? The Masa and Even Misama, whereas a Sheretz is not Matame either. Okay, and we'll get soon to a Nevela, which a Nevela is Matame Masa, but it's not Matame Even Misama. Okay? So that's an in-between one. Okay, a dead animal that was killed not by Shechita. Okay, so let's read more inside. So basically, Rabbi says, again, first thing is, everyone agrees it's Matame Masa. The Machloket is Even Misama. Rabbi Akiva Savar Kinida. It's just like a Nida. Ma Nida Matama Be'Even Misama. Af Avodah Zarah Matame Be'Even Misama. The Rabbanan Savar Kesheretz. When the rabbis compare it to a Sheretz, they're trying to talk about the Even Misama. Ma Sheretz Lo Matame Be'Even Misama. Af Avodah Zarah Lo Matame Be'Even Misama. Now what are we left to do? And this is the left-hand side of the chart, which is the questions of what does each one do with the pasuk of the other. Rabbi Akiva, Lamai Hilchata Itkish L'Sheretz. So why does it say Shaketz Tishaksenu? You must think that that does compare it to a Sheretz. So what does Rabbi Akiva say? It's compared to a Sheretz L'Misham Sheha. For those who serve, like things that serve the idol, not the idol itself, but extra, what do you call them? Accessories. They'll be Matame like a Sheretz. But the Avodah Zarah itself will be like a Nida. Ule Rabbanan, Lamai Hilchata Itkish L'Nida. Well, this is obvious. The rabbis will say it's like Nida, L'Masa, for the union of Masa. But now they ask a further question on that. The Luksha Rachmana L'Nevela. If we wanted to say it's Tameh Masa, but not Even Misama, as I told you before, Nevela is Tameh Masa and not Even Misama. That would have been a much better comparison. So why did the pasuk say it's like a Nida? It should have said it's like a Nevela. So they say in Achinami, it really is like a Nevela, and they could have, but why didn't they? Because there's a further halacha. What does this mean? Okay, there's actually a debate, Rashi, the Rambam, what this means. Rashi says what it means is if you cut off an aver from a Nida woman, okay, a menstruating woman, again, we're getting a little graphic and disgusting, but if a limb of her body were to come off, now that's what we call aver minachai. Aver minachai has tuma like a mate. Okay, it's mitame ba'ohel and all that. But an aver from a Nida is not mitame Even Misama, because Even Misama is a unique law to a Nida, and it goes into the category of aver minachai, not aver min a Nida. Okay, that's the way Rashi explains it. The Rambam says it actually means if just she puts one limb, like her finger, into a kli, that won't carry tuma. He has a whole different, and it doesn't mean cutting off a limb off her body. But anyway, we'll leave that aside for right now. The main point is there's an additional halacha that we wanted to learn from Nida, that Avodah Zarah also, if you have a part of an idol, like let's say it's a statue of a figure, and you have a finger that cut off of it, that's not going to have impurity. Only the whole idol will, not a part of it that comes off. That's why it's compared to Nida according to the rabbis. Okay, now we're moving to, but now they say, wait, there's one question on that though. Elaha debai Rami Rahama bar Gulia, Avodah Zarah yeshna le'evarim or ina le'evarim? Rahama bar Gulia asked that exact question, and he wasn't answered. And if it was obvious to us that according to the rabbis, we just explained that the reason you learn it from Nida is to say that it's not mitame be'evarim, then tifshot lameha, they should have learned it from here to the Rabbanan ina le'evarim. So that's not a great answer because Rav Chama bar Gulia had a question and it wasn't answered, and it wasn't answered because we don't know. So Rav Chama bar Gulia, how did they answer this? I'll leave it to Rabbi Akiva Baile. We only said that it was like a Nida for this issue of Evarim, that it's a Nale Evarim, was only to explain the rabbi's opinion, but it didn't say that about Rabbi Akiva's opinion because Rabbi Akiva says it's like Nida to teach you this matame like a Nida, right? Be'evan Masama. So therefore, you could say that his question was according to Rabbi Akiva and not according to the rabbis, and then we're okay because we don't know what he would say, what Rabbi Akiva would say about Evarim. That was the whole first explanation. So again, let's just review. You can look at the chart also. Rabba says, Kuleama mitama mishum nida v'masa, right? Everyone agrees v'masa, it's tame. The question becomes, is it mitame ve'evan misama or not? Okay. Now we have Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar in Eretz Israel, he said, ve'evan misama de kuleama lo pligi de lo mitama. Everyone agrees that Avodah Zarah, The Eva Masama is a unique halacha to Nida, not for Eva Masama. Ki pligi b'masa. Now we go back to our original way of reading it, which is the whole machloket is by carrying it, you're going to be obligated. Rabbi Akiva savar ki nida, ma nida Tama b'masa, af avodah zarah Tama b'masa. The Rabbanan savar kasheretz, ma sheretz lo Tama b'masa, af avodah zarah lo Tama b'masa. This is very simple. This is how we explained it in the first place. Is it like sheretz, no tumat masa, or is it like nida, yes, tumat masa? But now we're going to have to explain each pasuk according to the other one. For Rabbi Akiva, lamai hilchata itkish l'sheretz. So why is it also like a sheretz? So we'll answer the same answer, which is l'misham sheha, right, for the accessories. For Rabbanan, lamai hilchata itkish l'nida, ma nida ina levarim, af avodah zarah ina levarim. Then according to the rabbis, we're going to say it's specifically to tell you, right, last time, right, it's exactly what we said before. It's specifically to tell you that it's not levarim, that if you have a piece, a limb from the idol, it's not going to be metame, just like the nida. And that's how it's compared to a nida, but not for tumat masa. Okay, we're going to continue more with this further on, but we'll stop here for today as the daf ends here.
Thank you.